Over the past 3 decades, antidepressant therapy has led to improvements in patients' lives. However, there is still more to be done. So let's take a look at one of the latest developments. Major depressive disorder is characterised by clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. People with depression often experience a combination of emotional, physical, and cognitive symptoms. Although advances in antidepressant therapy have led to vast improvements, not least on side effect profiles, studies show that many patients fail to achieve full remission with current therapies, and a large proportion of patients with major depressive disorder have residual symptoms or relapsing episodes. So there is still a need for new strategies to provide better efficacy and improved response. Furthermore, there's an increasing awareness that depression is a complex disease that requires the management of more than just mood. For example, cognitive symptoms such as indecisiveness, difficulty concentrating, and forgetfulness in patients with depression are often overlooked and are not a focus of current treatment approaches. Brintellix, or vortioxetine, is indicated for the treatment of major depressive disorder in adults and is supported by one of the most comprehensive clinical programs seen for the launch of a new antidepressant. The trial data showed that Brintellix is an efficacious antidepressant in patients with major depressive disorder, including patients who did not optimally respond to SSRI or SNRI treatment. Not only was Brintellix shown to improve mood, improvement in cognitive function associated with depression, as assessed by the DSST, was also demonstrated by randomized trials. In a study in adult depressed patients, the digit symbol substitution test was used to assess the key cognitive processes of executive function, working memory, processing speed, and visuospatial attention. The results showed that Brintellix improved cognitive performance in patients with depression compared with placebo, and was effective in multiple measures of cognitive function. This study also assessed functional performance using the University of California, San Diego Performance-Based Skills Assessment, or UPSA, to measure skills of everyday functional capacity across 5 domains, including household chores, communication, finance, transportation, and planning and recreational activity. Brintellix improved functionality compared with placebo in adults aged 18 to 65 with major depressive disorder and self-reported cognitive dysfunction. So, now let's discover more about Brintellix and its pharmacology. Over the last 50 years, several effective antidepressants have been developed. But how do they work? And what makes Brintellix different? Let's first consider the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, known as the SSRIs. These compounds inhibit the serotonin reuptake transporter on presynaptic neurons, which increases serotonin levels in the synaptic cleft. Acting via this single mechanism, the therapeutic effect of the SSRIs in depression is well established. The serotonin noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors, or the SNRIs, also inhibit serotonin reuptake, as well as noradrenaline reuptake. Recognizing the benefits of traditional antidepressants and also the unmet needs of patients, scientists at Lundbeck set out to create a new molecule for the treatment of depression. Their approach was to combine an SSRI with 5-HT1A receptor agonism. This would both block the serotonin reuptake transporter and modulate 5-HT1A receptors to produce a rapid onset of action and an augmentation of the serotonin response. Next, 5-HT3 receptor antagonism was added to the molecule. Based on existing preclinical data, it was hypothesized that targeting postsynaptic 5-HT3 receptors would modulate various transmitter systems, thus enhancing the antidepressant properties of the molecule, whilst also enhancing neuronal pathways associated with cognitive function. The scientists continued to optimize the chemistry until a molecule emerged that, in addition to transporter inhibition, 5-HT1A agonism, and 5-HT3 antagonism, also had 5-HT1B partial agonism, 5-HT7 antagonism, and 5-HT1D antagonism. They had discovered Brintellix, an antidepressant with multimodal activity. But the profile of Brintellix doesn't end with direct effects on the serotonin transporter and several 5-HT receptors, because the molecule is shown to modulate various neurotransmitter systems too. For example, excitatory pyramidal glutamate firing increases serotonergic activity, which feeds back to pyramidal neurons and leads to a reduction in glutamate activity, which in turn decreases serotonergic activity. In another feedback mechanism, serotonergic firing is decreased by inhibitory feedback control via 5-HT1A autoreceptors. A further important mechanism is that where excitatory glutamate signals increase serotonergic activity, which, via 5-HT3 receptors located at the GABAergic interneuron, increases GABA activity. This then decreases glutamate firing. The preclinical profile of Brintellix suggests that the molecule modulates these feedback mechanisms. To explain briefly, Brintellix increases serotonergic activity via serotonin reuptake inhibition. But because it is a 5-HT1A autoreceptor agonist, the negative serotonin self-feedback mechanism is rapidly deactivated, which maintains serotonergic firing. At the same time, serotonin-mediated GABA firing is decreased by blocking 5-HT3 receptors located at the GABAergic interneuron. The removal of the inhibitory GABA input reduces the inhibition of pyramidal glutamate neurons, and thereby glutamate pyramidal activity is increased. So we've learnt that Brintellix modulates multiple serotonergic mechanisms. But what are the downstream effects of this? Well, animal studies show that Brintellix leads to increased activity of multiple neurotransmitter systems, including serotonin, noradrenaline, dopamine, acetylcholine, glutamate, and histamine, and to a reduction in GABAergic activity. To summarise, based on an extensive clinical development programme in adults with major depressive disorder, Brintellix is an effective antidepressant with multimodal activity that addresses mood and cognitive function in depression, as assessed by the DSST. Brintellix is also well tolerated at the recommended daily dose and does not exhibit typical antidepressant side effects such as weight gain, sleep disturbances, or sexual dysfunction beyond placebo level. That's the end of my journey, but now there's an opportunity for depressed patients with cognitive problems to start on a new journey with Brintellix, an antidepressant with multimodal activity.